Hello, Randa. Randa, you write, are desires and fears personal or universal? You know, Randa, if you look out in nature, you may, for example, see a herd of gazelles out in the African steppes, and they're grazing, and they're enjoying their grazing, and they're very alert because they are prey to the lions, the tigers, etc. So they're alert. If they hear a little noise, they stop and they look around. And if they don't detect anything that is a danger, they continue to graze. They're alert, but they are not fearful. And then when they look out and they see a lion, then they immediately start running in the opposite direction. When you watch this, you don't sense any fear. You sense the energy of the gazelles just jumping and running, and even when the lion catches the gazelle, it battles if it still has a chance to escape, and when it can't, it just surrenders. It's really fascinating to watch that, because you see life and death, what we refer to as life and death of the gazelle, but you don't see fear. In the human experience, we experience fear. We experience desires and fear. Desire is a form of seeking, going after something. And fear is resisting, shutting ourselves off from something that's arising to us. But it's a psychological dimension. It's not like going after food, like we go to we desire to buy some vegetables to eat, or we resist eating food that is toxic. It's not like that. It's a psychological dimension to desires and fears. And the state of seeking and resisting, psychological seeking and psychological resisting that we experience as human beings, is at the ignorance level, meaning at the level where we have a material form. We have identified with a material form, the psychological identification. We are in the material realm in terms of our perceptions, our understanding, and our sensation. We're sensing ourselves and experiencing ourselves as a human form. We have not yet risen to the divine. We have not yet come to God's reality. We are still at the human material reality or experience, perception. This is what we refer to as personal. So we refer to this belief in being a material form as being a person, as being the personal experience. So on one hand, you could say that yes, desires and fears are personal, they're not divine. God has no fear and no desire because God is everything and is bountiful, is not seeking to augment itself or fix itself. It's the source of everything and the reality of everything. Therefore, fear and the sense of lack and the seeking is a human. A human meaning it is at the realm of ignorance, of believing ourselves to be immortal body mind. Once you start to release these impressions of materialism, of physicality, by contemplating the source of your experience, by contemplating the reality of your experience, then this personal impression of limitation and therefore the seeking and the resisting will dissolve, will cease to be your experience. But most of humanity is still at that realm of the physical, the sensual impressions, and is experiencing itself as a form and experiencing the human experience as a experience of objects and material experience. It has not yet risen to the divine. Everything that you experience has a source. And the source of your experience is not an experience. The source of all experience is peace, stillness, is God, is God's grace, is the wholeness of consciousness, the infinity of being. If you live at the mental realm or at the physical realm, at the realm of forms and the objective realm, you overlook your purpose. And your understanding does not rise from the limited impressions of being subject to the world. You remain subject to the forms. You remain in the grip of the senses. And as long as you are in the grip of the senses, you cannot experience God's love. You cannot experience God's freedom. It still remains apart from you. Rhonda, you're right. If we take the analogy of the night dream, a character in the dream has no choice of the fears and desires that arise. Isn't that universal? The character in the dream, Rhonda, has no choices and is not a real character when you are dreaming in the night dream, a character, that character could have 6 arms and could be 25 foot tall, or could be a bird. But the character in your night dream is not real. It appears to be real. It appears to have perceptions, to have emotions. But when you wake up, you realize, oh, none of it was real. None of it was true. What is universal, Rhonda, is consciousness. It is you, the dreamer, as an analogy. The dreamer is dreaming all the night dreams, all the characters in the night dream. The characters in the night dream are limited. They're specific forms. But you, the dreamer, are the formless self. As you have no forms. That is what is universal. What is universal is consciousness. So when you, in your question, you have 2 assumptions. One assumption is that the character in the night dream is a real character and has actual personal choices and fears, while they don't. And the second assumption is that the character in the, which is part of the first assumption, was that the character in the dream is therefore universal, or maybe the emotions or the feelings that they're having are universal. And Rhonda, you're right, I understand the person has an apparent reality. You see, apparent reality is, it's an oxymoron. I mean, how could reality appear and disappear? I mean, there is only reality or not. In other words, the dream character cannot have an apparent reality. It's a mistake to believe that Santa Claus is real. It's or Santa Claus is real or not real. You follow? Like the ring in the gold. Yes, I understand. Yes. So our material experience, our physical experience, and our identification as a physical form, or our sense of being a physical form, is just mind. It's a mind impression. It's, when you look at it, you don't find an actual physical form. You only find mind. You only find perceptions and thoughts and sensations. You only find mind. And mind refers to what creates it, and what perceives it, and what knows it, and what experiences it, which is consciousness. So thoughts, bodily sensations, arise out of consciousness and are known by consciousness. Consciousness is the space that perceives and is, the perception is intimate with it. It conceives the perception and perceives it. The reason why we say it conceives the perception is because when you look at the perception and you look at consciousness, you find them to be intimately one. Like in your night dream, whatever you're dreaming in your night dream, your dreams are arising out of you. They're made out of you. They're intimate with you. You're the dreamer. So consciousness conceives and perceives. It's the space that creates and knows its creation instantaneously, moment by moment, and dissolves it. It dissolves it releases it. As it arises, it's released. So when you look at your experience of, you will find like an apparent physical reality. In fact, if you look closer, you will not find any physical reality. You will only find the reality of consciousness. Because everything you perceive is intimate with consciousness and has no distance outside of consciousness. It's not standing apart of consciousness. There is nothing that is apart from God. God is the ultimate reality. And the spiritual journey is the rising from the ashes of ignorance, from the grips of ignorance and identification, to the formless self. So it's a journey from the impression of form to the formless reality, from fear and desire to the bliss of the self. The reality of the ring is the gold, and the ring is just mind. There is actually no ring. There is mind. The ring is mind, is a labeling, a categorization. But there is the reality of all impressions, of all rings, of all forms, which is the gold, which is consciousness. There isn't the gold and the ring. Okay, you're welcome, Randa. Before it keeps scrolling down, let me address Raul's question. He asked me to, hello Raul, if you're hearing on YouTube or whenever, read your question. Imagine that one morning you wake up as far as possible from the genuine experience of the self, but wanting badly to bring it back so you could be free from the tyranny of separation. How would you proceed to gain yourself back, starting from the illusion of darkness or separation? Well, you work with what you have available to you that refers to the light, that refers to truth. You can go directly to consciousness. So you wake up and you find yourself far from consciousness, far from the experience of the self, and you want it. It's always there, available to you all. Consciousness is what you are, is the reality of all experiences. Everything you perceive is God's creation. Everything you experience is what the Sufis say, wherever my eyes fall is the face of God. So the reality of consciousness is eternal, ever present. So rather than turning your attention towards the forms that you perceive, turn your attention to the reality that perceives. Everything you experience via God, via consciousness, via truth, via the reality, via the formless reality of the self. So your interest in consciousness is the path. Your interest in consciousness will bring to you those little drops of consciousness, let's say, I'm using that image. And and whenever consciousness reveals itself to you, it feels, oh, how beautiful, how peaceful, how lovely. It is trouble-free. And your interest in consciousness in time hopefully not too much time, will turn into a love, a passion for consciousness. You will find yourself more and more drawn towards consciousness, towards the sweetness, towards the openness of consciousness, towards the all-inclusive aspect of consciousness. Consciousness is not in the me business. Oh, how can I be happier for me? It's not. It's in the wholeness business, universal happiness, universal beingness. So as you turn your attention towards consciousness, you ask yourself questions such as, what is it that perceives right now? What is the reality of my experience right now? What am I truly? Am I a man, a woman, or am I the reality that perceives, the formless reality? It's ever present to you. It has no gender, it has no borders, it has no personal agenda. It's not trying to fix any problems. It doesn't perceive problems. So in your question, there is the assumption that you are far away from the self. Because in your question, there is the assumption that you are a man or a person, that you're a separate self. And as long as you believe yourself to be a separate self, you will have the impression of being distant from God, of being a material form. You overlook the spirit, you overlook the formless self. You say, how would you proceed to gain yourself back, starting from the illusion of darkness? If it's really an illusion, like in your question, you said the illusion of separation. If it's really an illusion, why do you need to save yourself from an illusion? If you say it's an illusion, you're already saved. But you're saying it's an illusion, but you believe it's not an illusion. You believe it's true. You believe that, in fact, you are separate. So if you really believe you are separate, then why are you using the term illusion? If it's illusion, then you're done. It's an illusion. There is only one reality. And that reality is not something. Because if it's something, then there is something else that is reality B, a different reality. So that one reality must be everything. And it's not somewhere. Because if it's somewhere, then it's not somewhere else. So it is everywhere. But if that one reality is everything and everywhere, then the whole concept of things dissolves in that reality. It's like the human body. There are all these organs in the human body. But in fact, it's one body. All the organs are intimately this one, but there isn't a body and with separate organs. It's a totality. So any way that you can contemplate truth, recollect reality, recollect God, recollect what is it that's real. Whenever you contemplate the qualities of consciousness, which are love, beauty, happiness, freedom, not from a personal perspective, from a universal perspective. You are moving in the right direction. But you already are all that. You already are the self that you seek. Everything that arises in the stillness, in the borderless presence. It's not limited, it has no opposition. All oppositions are at the mind level, their appearances, impressions, day and night, positive and negative, strong and weak. They're impressions that arise referring to the wholeness in which and out of which they arise and that perceives them. But in fact, wholeness does not perceive opposites. It's only at the mind level that we perceive opposites. Wholeness only knows itself as the freedom, as the happiness, as the peace, as the joy. And it's referred to as God realization. And this is your destiny and your function and your purpose. You have no other function or purpose but that. Okay, so if there are any other questions? Hello, Nanda. You're right. The experience of this very moment is the destiny of God realization. That realization in expression. Can you say something about living this? You know, just want to be clear about your question. The experience of this very moment is the destiny of God realization.
Well, like you were just saying, destiny is your destiny. Your only real concern is
God
that realization.
Yes.
And there really is no future, so it's right here. If seen, I suppose.
Yes. It depends. If you are still in the material realm, if you're still in the physical impression, if you're still in the worldly impression of forms, me and others, me and this, me and me and objects, then you are still in the worldly realm. You're still in the human realm. You're still, you could, it says sometimes you're still in the dream. You see.
Mm-hmm.
So the purpose, you say, of this dream is to, when there is a spark, hopefully there is a spark, a divine spark, to care for it and cater to it so that it turns into the flame that guides you out of this impression of physicality and separation to the realization of your true nature, which we refer to as God's realization. So the way you live this, and your question is something about living this, is by valuing, caring for, and catering to the insights that come from God, to the insights that refer to truth, that refer to the wholeness, to the non-separate reality of the self. Oftentimes we do not honor the gift that is given to us. It's like we receive a package from God's emissaries, from the angels, and we're too busy. We say, okay, just put it there on the table, and we're too busy watching television or whatever it is. We're too busy, crying about why our girlfriend left us, or crying about why the boss give the promotion to somebody else or whatever. And so the way we live, our interest and our passion, our love, hopefully, our love and passion for truth, is by honoring it. And honoring, meaning recognizing what the insight that is coming to us, what the message, what the dharmic message is. Which the dharmic message is: you are not what you perceive. You are not a form. You are not a thought. You are not an object. You are not something that is perceived. You are the formless self.
Mm-hmm.
Once there is a little understanding of that message, you have to take it to heart, at heart. You have to take it
to
your heart. Yes. And ponder it. What does it mean? How does that live itself? How does the formless self live itself? The formless self meaning a non-separate beingness, non-separate, non-limited, aware field of beingness. It does not seek and resist.
Yes.
What would it seek and resist if it's the formless self? What would it cry over? What would it cry over if it's a formless self? Over what? Over money it lost? Over relationship it lost? Over it's. So you live your understanding by always recollecting the significance of your understanding, which is a message from God that's basically telling you, you are not what the mind says you are.
Yeah, I see what you mean. The significance of that is totally profound. And so I find that I'm still, like, I went to a concert yesterday, concert in the park, walking distance from my apartment. Really nice. And it's called the Peace Town concert series. And they have meditation, they have this whole big audience gets quiet and somebody plays a flute and they have a meditation on world peace. So it's a very sweet community I'm in. But I felt I felt a kind of pressure from all the different relationships I have. I have to admit, mostly with the women who I've gotten to know a little bit, and something either does or doesn't work out, and they're all there at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, suddenly something occurred to me was, Ramana talks about fearlessness under all situations.
Yes.
So the social unease in some way.
Yes.
I thought, so what is it that's making it? I'm taking this as a dangerous zone. Like, what if this person?
Mm-hmm.
Does this person really like me? Does this one really approve of me? Am I really in this inner circle, or should I just stay away because I don't really fit?
Yes.
Things like that. And I thought somehow this contemplation took away pretty much all of that distress. I thought, well, whatever this person thinks or whatever this group, maybe I don't fit in this group and maybe I do. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
This is a kind of
yeah, this physical realm
mm-hmm.
is made of opposites.
Mm-hmm.
Like and dislike, and this versus that, and
mm-hmm.
good and bad, and better and worse, and like me, don't like me, like her, don't like her. It's made is not this realm that you are referring to.
Yes.
Is the realm, the worldly realm, the realm of mind,
mm-hmm.
and the realm of opposites, which have no reality outside of mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is a mind that gives this gives this opposites, good and bad, yes and no.
Mm-hmm.
The divine realm does not have any of that.
Mm-hmm.
Does not deal with that. Recognizes that realm
mm-hmm.
for what it is. You recognize the mind's realm for what it is.
Right.
And if you're trying to seek salvation in the realm of the mind,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
you are in the wrong. You're applying yourself in the wrong arena.
Mm-hmm.
You are exhausting your intelligence and your efforts
mm-hmm.
in the dream realm.
Mm-hmm.
And this is not a contemplation of the truth. It is not. You are like going to the doctor to get a Band-Aid, but you're not looking at the cause of the infection. You're not dealing with what really matters. And you get a Band-Aid, but then you have to replace it again and again and again, you see. And when the infection gets worse, you have to get bigger intervention.
I'm thinking an image comes to me. You're sitting on a porcupine and you're saying, does anybody have a tweezer here?
Yes.
Or something like
yes.
that.
That's a good image.
Because there's so many quills. There's always plenty of quills to poke you.
Yes. Yes. So what we are talking about is completely abandoning this realm. Completely letting it go and turning your attention to God's calling, to the wholeness of being, not to the opposites that arise in the mind and trying to work it out, hoping that something good will come to you in that realm of objects and forms and thoughts and mind. It's an infinite whirlpool.
Whirlpool. Yeah.
Of different currents that
Yes.
you're trying to find.
And with that social mind, with that social concern in place, it is like there's like this whirlpools, dangerous whirlpool here and here, and in a place where there's lots of people, there's
Yes.
So it occurred to me that I actually felt like it occurred to me that I shrink if I get concerned with, now what does this one think, or do I fit in this group?
Yes.
They're having a birthday party, but I don't really know that person, so am I really part of the group? It's something like that.
Yes.
Then I go, I can feel that I'm trying to shrink to fit a situation and to have a positive outcome.
Yes, you already have shrunk because you
because of the concern.
When you say you're talking about some physical form. You already have shrunk to the physical form. All physical forms, as you identify with them, are shrunken forms, or even you don't identify with them, they're shrunken, they're an object. But consciousness, God's reality, is not an object. It's not shrunk. It's not a form that is trying to find the good relationships or how to fit in the social group or anything like that.
Yeah.
And whoever speaks about finding harmony in this realm, in that realm that you're referring to, is beating on the wrong drum.
Could be.
Something like that.
Well, it was Thoreau. What's it? Henry David Thoreau says, I go to a different drummer.
Yeah, you have to go.
I follow a different drummer,
You have to follow God's drum, the trumpets. The trumpets of God's angels. There is no other way.
It almost seems dramatic, to make this shift, but it only seems dramatic to the dreaming perspective, I guess. Otherwise it's just peace.
The drama, Ananda, is to reduce your wholeness to a personal form. That's very dramatic.
Yes, right.
And we live this misery of gain and loss, of good and bad, don't we?
Yes.
That's pretty dramatic.
Yeah. Even the happy park full of people, mostly, having fun, good music, good, drinking beer, whatever. And then if you look more closely, there's some distress. There's distress almost universal.
You cannot see happiness. You cannot see God as a form, but you can know God within yourself. You know God within yourself as peace, inner peace and happiness, and as a universal beingness, as a transparent being, not limited self. You cannot see that in the park. You cannot say, "Oh, there it is," you see. But you know it as yourself, not as yourself as a physical form which you perceive and you experience. No, as your true self, that is the formless reality of being, that is the infinite beingness, infinite invisible beingness. So you cannot see it in the park, or you cannot see it in the, you know, in the castle full of gold, and or driving the beautiful car. You cannot see it that way. That's all illusion.
Right. Which can be captivating.
Captivating at the sense level, at the mind level. The perceptual realm is captivating at the mind level. Oh wow, you know, beautiful volcano, oh, beautiful castle, beautiful this, beautiful that. But the beauty that we really love in the world refers to the divine, refers to the beyond. It takes you to your inner stillness. It takes you like a beautiful sunset, or just listening to the gurgle of a brook can take you to that, take you to the creator, it takes you to the source. And it's an inner experience of like communion beyond the form that you're experiencing.
Right. You know, sometimes it's expressed sometimes that, I think this is almost an impossible thing to talk about, but sometimes it's expressed, you even say something like, somehow consciousness gets trapped by these ideas because consciousness itself is completely free. So that's such a paradox that there is no real dream character. So
right. So there is no real trap. I mean, consciousness is complete freedom.
So it doesn't get trapped.
Yes, no. There is no such thing as a trap or any opposites in that realm.
So the trappedness is just a little whirlpool of mind and assumption or something.
Yes, it is. It's still perception from the physical perspective. There is still a human perspective, meaning a worldly perspective of forms and objects.
Right.
And so there are forms that are trapped in other forms, or that are limited in their reach, so that it's still at that, hasn't risen to God's level, to the divine, to the formless self. It's still,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
It's still in the realm of the forms and of opposites.
But you know how in Buddhism they say, I don't know if I remember this exactly right, but there's no nirvana aside from samsara, and there's no samsara aside from nirvana, or there's no Buddha aside from sentient beings, etc.
Yes.
And that would be like sahaja, or that would be like absolute wholeness, I would say, I would think.
Yes, you know, at the mind level, we perceive opposites. There's good and bad, and enlightenment and ignorance. And that's why we sometimes speak of ignorance as being an impression, because we're never really apart from God. And yet the experience of the physical form that has not yet risen to the broader understanding of the reality of consciousness, and that has not yet released its mortality, its impression of mortality and life and death and opposites. That is what's referred to as samsara. In it's true that there is no samsara because it is the dream characters that are suffering, and a dream character is not real. But yet, until you arrive to your complete certainty that there is no reality to the dream character and that your reality is God's reality, until you arrive to that, the solution in the self, to speak of samsara is nirvana and nirvana is samsara is like speaking of being on top of Mount Everest and overseeing the beauty of that scene from second-hand account, from without actually having been there, but you know for a fact from somebody's account.
Yes,
it's a second-hand account. That is not the true deliverance from ignorance. It's a pointer to that can have some effect, and that is used and shared by the sages in certain specific circumstances when they are addressing a certain question. But then in ignorance, we take these statements and we make flags out of them, and we wave the flag saying, samsara is nirvana, nirvana is samsara.
so let's go.
Yes, Huang Po has said that in the year, 675, and students recorded that.
Right.
It's not about some great sages saying. It's about the revelation of the self. It's about God's realization. And if you know for a fact from your own experience that nirvana is samsara and samsara is nirvana, that is a different matter. But just to say some more about this, if you look at your experience and you're experiencing perceptions, sensations, and thoughts, when you try to reach for anything, when you try to reach for a thought or for a perception or for an object or for a sensation, bodily sensation, you only find consciousness. You find the formless self. So over and over in your experience, rather than standing apart from your experience, go to it directly. Go reach it, touch it, feel it, sense it, find out what is its reality, whatever it is that you're experiencing, and you will come directly to nirvana. You will find that samsara is nirvana, but you have to find it in your experience moment by moment, not by standing apart from it and being a person walking in the park thinking about other forms and you as a form, but you have to go closer than that. You have to go more intimate than that to the reality of whatever it is that is appearing. Because it is in going to the reality that you come to the formless self and you realize that all forms are the formless self, and that therefore samsara is nirvana.
Yeah, I see that. I see. Just on a kind of practical level, sometimes when I'm in a situation like that, like at the park, I just sit down in my lawn chair and close my eyes, listening to the music, and something about the cacophony of people and experience and everything takes I inquire along the lines that you're saying, like, well, what was all that? What was all that excitement that I would seem to be caught up in? It seems like the busy marketplace kind of vibe
Mm-hmm.
surrounding this actual body on that level shows up the difference between the imaginary quality of it somehow, almost like if I sit quietly at home, I don't go right to that place of separate, seeing the distinction between all appearance and consciousness itself. It seems like the busy situation actually is like an energetic reminder almost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sometimes the forms refer you to the formless. They sort of they take you beyond them. Sometimes you could be in a place where there's a lot of sounds, a lot of activities around you, and then it takes you to that stillness as perceiving all that. It sort of refers to its referent.
Right. So I'm not saying that I should need to do that or anything, but it is something that happens in those situations.
Yeah. There's only one I.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not a person.
Thank you for sharing your clarity about that.
Okay, Ananda. Hello, Emmanuel. Emmanuel, you write, why it seems so difficult to wake up from the me level. If I am universal consciousness and there is nothing more than universal consciousness, why there is this being stuck at the me ego level? Where is the point where being stuck happens? First, waking up from the me level is not a personal waking up. There is no person that wakes up from the me level. Waking up from the me level simply refers to a deep understanding that the reality of my experience is not defined by what is being experienced. That I can experience all sorts of experiences, but nothing that I experience defines me. Nothing that I experience refers to the reality that experiences what is being experienced. Nothing that you experience defines you, defines the experiencer. So there isn't a personal waking up. It's not Emmanuel that wakes up to the self. the self is already awake, and you are not Emmanuel, no matter how many times that thought has appeared to you, no matter how many times you have heard that I am Emmanuel, you are not that referent that was referred to by thought or was referred to by other ways. The self is already awake, but I would say that the wakefulness of the self is not a wakefulness that knows any opposite. It is a wakefulness that is absolute, meaning there is no such thing as non-wakefulness when you are speaking about the reality of consciousness. Reality of consciousness does not go to sleep and awaken. Awakening and falling asleep, meaning wisdom and ignorance, are at the mind level. At the truth level, at the absolute level, there is no such thing as ignorance and wisdom. You have to let go of these opposites. Otherwise, you will continue to be haunted by the good and the bad. Whatever you experience out of your complete freedom, not your complete freedom as some limited mortal form, but out of your complete freedom as consciousness, as the self, as the reality of consciousness. You have, out of your freedom, chosen long enough to dream you are some mortal form. Okay, that's fine, that's good enough, we all know that. Seeking, avoiding, hoping, wishing, measuring, thinking about tomorrow, thinking about yesterday. And all of these thoughts refer to me, this body mind, Emmanuel or whatever. So the opposites are maintained via your believing them and accepting them and being concerned about these thoughts and being concerned about your feelings. And your concerns about your feelings keep you in the spin, in the feeling spin, in the emotional spin, keep you at the mind level, and you do not rise to the God consciousness that is your true nature. There is no reality to being stuck. Being stuck comes hand in hand with the human form identity. as soon as you are a human form identity that you believe yourself to be, there is a stuckness. You are stuck. But not really, because as you are experiencing this impression of stuckness, the I that is experiencing this impression is complete freedom. There is an I that is complete freedom, that you overlook, or we could say that overlooks itself, but it is you who is overlooking yourself with your interests in the worldly forms and your interests in experiences and emotions and sensations and thoughts and the senses. And there is no way to God via your interest in the worldly realm. The worldly realm is fueled from beyond. It is not fueled via the human mind or by the human mind. It is fueled via God's grace. The breath, the functioning of the weather and the elements and the gravity and the rotation of the galaxies is not man-made. It is God's made, God made. And if you believe that your destiny is in human hands, you are in the wrong belief. You are in the ignorance. You are in the confusion, and you will continue to struggle and judge yourself and judge others for having failed or succeeded and failed again. Sooner or later, we have to sober up. We can't keep on waiting for the mind to give us a break. We are not subjects of the mind. The mind is our subject. The mind is not your Lord, has never been your Lord. So the contemplation is the contemplation of truth, not of impressions, not of thoughts about me, tomorrow, in the past, yesterday, him, her, etc. It's not that. The contemplation is contemplation of the reality, not of what appears, of that to which all appearances appears and that knows all appearances effortlessly, which we refer to as consciousness, as truth, as reality, as the absolute, as Atman, whatever. It doesn't matter what we refer to it, which is I, what I am truly, I as universal self. There may be a thought that I am Magdi and I am not Emmanuel, but that thought does not speak the truth, because a thought is perceived, is an object that is perceived. What is perceived cannot speak about the reality of the perceiver. Only the perceiver can speak about its own reality. And the perceiver is I, universal I. I look at I, and I find just pure aware presence, borderless aware presence. No beginning, no end, no right, no left, no top, no down. Not limited, not defined by what it perceives. This is why the highest teaching is said, know yourself and know God. Know yourself and know God. Not know a good job, or know a good life, or know a good children, a good family. Know yourself and know God. It is not know success and know the good life and then you know God. No, it is know yourself and know God. So it's good to see you, Emmanuel. Okay. Okay. Well, if there is any other question from anybody, yes. Okay. So I thank you all for your lovely company. Wish you peace and happiness. We'll see you soon. Ciao, Ananda.